Welcome to the Real News Network. This is Jessica Devereaux coming to you from Capitol Hill. This is day 5 of Democracy Spring here on Capitol Hill. The protesters here, they have one simple message for Congress. That's get the corrupting influence of money out of politics, as well as push back on voter suppression laws that they see are really inhibiting everyday people from having their voices heard. Now joining us is Pete Christabel. Pete, you came all the way from North Carolina to be a part of this. You have a very interesting outfit here. Can you talk a little bit about your inspiration for this suit, which has all these company logos on it?
Sure. I'm from North Carolina, where NASCAR is pretty big. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if our politicians had to wear suits that showed who their sponsors were? And so I thought, well, why don't I take this Uncle Sam costume and show some of the big spenders in D.C.
Who are some of those big spenders?
We've got some big food companies, some big pharma, big ag, big media conglomerates.
I see Monsanto, you have Verizon, you have FedEx, Nestle. So you did your research on this. This wasn't just arbitrary.
Yeah, this all came straight off a list from a website. I think it was called Truth in Politics, and it's the money that you can track, the lobbying money, because a lot of these super PACs you can't track the money and you don't know where it's coming from. But you can get a pretty good idea where it's coming from.
And that's a direct influence of Citizens United, which is another point that you would like to see whomever President Obama has nominated. We already know Merrick Garland or whomever's going to be the next justice has to overturn Citizens United. Is that right?
Right. I think that Citizens United was a big turning point in the money in politics battle. I think that it's clear the influence that big money has had, and it's just getting worse.
Can I ask you, with this presidential election in full swing right now, some folks might see Bernie Sanders surge, considering that he's had a lot of grassroots support, average donors about $27, and he's still able to compete, financially speaking, because of that. So some people might say you don't necessarily need to attack the system of money and politics, that it's still very possible that you could still operate within the system as it stands. What do you make of that?
I think the Bernie Sanders support in general is kind of a sign that we really do need to. I think that it's a sign that people are really fed up and that they're turning to him out of frustration with the system as it is. So they're looking to him to fix the system that's broken.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Pete.
Thanks so much.
All right, we'll catch up with you later. Okay, so another part of this day is all about youth. As if you've been watching our coverage, each day has had a theme. We've had Labor Day. We've had a day on racial justice. The protesters are telling us that today is all about youth. So they would like to see more young people get involved, and certainly there seems to be more people coming in. Typically, there are speakers that start around 11:30. Seems like things are a little bit delayed today. As you know, today is tax day as well in America, as well as Emancipation Day here in D.C. It's a holiday that is typically celebrated on the 16th of April, but because it falls on a weekend, it's being celebrated today. So D.C. city employees are off, schools are out, things of that nature. But there are folks who are protesting for D.C. statehood, and they have said that they are coming up from Freedom Plaza, where they're staging a demonstration, to join and support those in Democracy Spring. I think you might be able to see them on the other camera there coming through. If you see that flag, that red and white flag with the stars, that is the D.C. state flag. D.C. is not a state, as many of you probably know, but people pay taxes here, and if you've seen any D.C. license plates, it says taxation without representation, because folks might have a member of Congress, but that member cannot vote. So D.C. statehood is joining forces with Democracy Spring in order to get that message out. We also wanted to show you, let's actually keep looking at some of these protests. I'm going to join in now and see if we can speak to, give you a sense of what's going on here with this monopoly board. We have a monopoly board that has been set up, as well as you could see, a sign that says one person, one vote. This monopoly board, if we can get a shot of all of that, Cameron. It's supposed to, we're going to speak to the filmmaker of Pay to Play. and she was the one who came up with this entire concept, Holly Mosher. So let's head over there and see if we can catch up with Holly. All right, we are now joined by Holly Mosher, filmmaker of the documentary Pay to Play. Holly, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me on again.
So you came up with this concept of Monopoly board. I just wanted you to explain it a bit and give us a sense of what we're looking at.
Okay, so we made a film about money and politics, and as we were editing the film, we realized there was just such overlap with the monopoly mindset, where our government has become winner takes all once you infuse such big money into the game. Instead of representing us, we the people, they're representing corporations. So, you know, we have things like corporate tax dodgers. I mean, we're seeing this currently with the whole Panama Papers. It's very relevant that I've read 8% of the world's economy is offshored. So we should bring that money home. Tax codes, you know, it's always benefiting the corporations instead of, you know, people complain about welfare, but it's like corporate welfare.
Can we explain how corporate tax codes affect?
Well, like you look that they create, you know, they put their money in countries overseas, and they're not. In fact, they're holding it overseas because they can't even bring it back into the country to spend here, and they're complaining about that. But they could pay their taxes just like I do, just like you do. You know, it's a fair system. We should all play by the rules. Instead, they rewrite the rules, which is why it's a game.
It's very relevant today as it is tax day.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let's continue this way.
So, you know, instead of chant, we have change. You know, can we get change is the big question. You know, the insurance lobby, when we looked at the, you know, Obamacare, the insurance and big pharma were writing a lot of what is now our code, and it benefits them. It brings everybody into the system instead of getting to single payer, which would really cut costs. And Medicare Part D is just a gift to big pharma because we're paying full cost instead of, you know, getting a competitive tax break on prices because it's a group. You know, when you have a big group buying something, you can get a discount, you can bargain. But our government's not bargaining for Medicare Part D. So then we come to ALEC.
ALEC, what does ALEC stand for?
The American Legislative Exchange Council, which has been around now for 40 plus years, and they work state by state, and they get laws like Stand Your Ground or these voter ID bills, which, you know, things that harm people, the right to work states. So they're going state by state, and they've been very effective. And it wasn't until a few years ago that they were uncovered.
And the folks that are members of ALEC, can we just rattle some names?
Oh, well, it's corporations. But we've seen a lot of members leaving ALEC because they realize that this is not what their customers want. So in our film, actually, Color of Change petitioned Coca-Cola, to leave ALEC, and they did because of Trayvon Martin and the Stand Your Ground laws. They're like, why are you part of ALEC? And then we saw the same thing when they were lobbying for dirty energy. A lot of the actually internet companies said, oh, we don't want to be a part of that because our customers don't like that. So when customers know they can be effective and they can force them to drop ALEC.
Okay,
Yeah, and then members of Congress too. So
Okay.
you know, they're members too.
What's this?
Oh, the campaign chest. I mean, how much does it cost to run for office nowadays? It's just out of control. And, you know, you follow instructions from donors rather than voters.
Okay, enough said.
Okay, the Koch brothers, I mean, everybody knows about them. I'm actually reading the book Dark Money right now by Jane Myers. It reveals a lot.
Give us some insights. I mean, some folks might hear the names, and I think people recognize the name, but just so our viewers know.
So I don't have the exact numbers, but this last year they promised to have an influx of more money. I think like 800, you know, I don't want to get the numbers wrong, but they wanted to have an influx that was bigger than the RNC or the DNC. So they're actually like a third party. They're putting in more money than either the RNC or the DNC.
With a libertarian stance.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They tried to have their own, you know, they were the Libertarian Party, and they realized that wasn't working. People weren't voting it. So I see it as they've infiltrated the Republican Party, and that's why there's such flux in the Republican Party now, because those ideas are still not popular. So it's breaking the party apart when they infiltrate.
And so people are clear. Koch Industries, Big fossil fuel company.
Yeah,
So
a lot of dirty energy. Like, I mean, I remember I was reading about, they had open piles of petro coke in Detroit. It wasn't even covered, so that's just blowing into the air. Or, like, again, I really recommend Dark Money. That book is fabulous. It really goes in depth and uncovers the money flow there.
and that's the New Yorker author, writer.
Yeah, I believe Jane Myers is in New York. Yeah.
Okay. Big banks.
Big banks. I mean, do I really need to explain that? I think we all know what happened with the entire economy when they, were on the edge of failing, and we bailed them out instead of. We could have saved millions of people's homes if we had refinanced. We could have done a longer-term financing instead of just getting rid of the homes. I had actually done another film on Muhammad Yunus, and when people with microcredit can't pay back, he just extends the terms and adjusts the interest rates. So we could have saved millions of homes by being more flexible and working with the homeowners. But instead, we worked with the big banks. And
Who suffered the most from that?
the American people suffered the most. I mean, it's sad. I've had friends who lost their homes, and it takes a lot of time to recover from that.
And I know the black community as well. I mean, I believe a third of the wealth of the black community was eviscerated with the 2000 recession. So it certainly has hit the African American community strong.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that in LA where I live. The Occupy Venice and Occupy LA, they were trying to save homes, and it's a tough battle when they chose to stand with the banks instead of with the people.
All right, let's see this one. CEOs don't go to jail.
Yeah, well, here you go. How many bankers have done jail time? What about the people from BP with that stuff? I mean, we could have had safety regulations. Actually, there was safety regulations that they're not following, and they're not going to jail. Yet we have more people in prison. Since 1970, there were less than 200,000 people in jail, and now there's over 1.6 million, and that's because we've privatized the prisons. And we're always going after the small crimes, not the big crimes. So I'd like to see some
and that is connected to the influence of money in politics. You see that directly.
Oh yeah. That's what this board is about.
Okay, let's continue. Citizens United, that infamous case.
Yes, so Citizens United, in 2010, the Supreme Court decision basically let corporations dump unlimited amounts of money into our political system, yet corporations can't vote. So why are they allowed to put money into our political system? And the Supreme Court assumed there would be disclosure, but we're not seeing any disclosure. So it's all this dark money again that's harming our democracy.
And the bench said they would expect Congress to come up with this type of legislation and these rules, but why haven't we seen that?
Well, in September 2014, in the Senate, they had the Democracy for All Act. It actually got more than 50% of the votes, but it wasn't enough to pass. So that's why we're here to work with our Congress members and senators who get it and want to change this, because a lot of them are sick of raising money too. They don't want to have to endlessly ask for money. That's that's not the job. That's not what they signed up for. So we're trying to be here to support them. We're not against them all. We're against the broken system, and we can change the system and get it back to how it used to be.
Okay, let's come here. I see a painting of John Boehner here. Water Works.
Yeah, well, I hear he breaks down in tears quite a bit.
Okay.
This one was the artist's touch.
Okay.
So Teacher, who's a great street artist, he actually has some of his art commissioned, I think, in the Smithsonian. The teacher who did this beautiful board for us. So.
Gotcha. The Supreme Court, we have the Supreme Court here. Some people might say a lot of these places on the board, it's not something that is recent. Like, this is how this country was structured, to have power in the hands of these certain institutions, like the Supreme Court, for example. It's always been meant to hold elite interests. So how do you really reform that if this is by design, essentially?
Right. Well, I think there was a good design with the balance of powers, but what we've seen recently was that the Supreme Court overstepped their bounds. And when the Citizens United decision was actually called up, Obama even kind of reprimanded them in front of everybody. they were kind of publicly shamed. But now to get it back, when they overstep their bounds, it takes a lot. So it's that balance, it's that struggle. So we're in the middle of the struggle to get back when they've overstepped their bounds, and I don't think they realized what they were walking into with that decision.
Okay. Some people might argue differently, but yes, I hear you. Okay, ideologue judges. What's that all about?
See, especially like when you go down to the local and state level, the way the courts are being set up now, and often who's getting into positions of the judges, they're often being pushed by these think tanks, by the secret money to get into place. And I know when I'm voting, it's very hard to find good information on judges if they're not appointed, if judges are elected, and like the idea that we have, ads for judges, like it's kind of wrong. So like a lot of stuff happens there. So that's what this space is about.
Gotcha. Pharma lobby, we touched upon that with the...
Again, I did 2 films about the pharmaceutical industry. One was called Side Effects with Katherine Heigl, and another one's called Money Talks, Profits Before Patient Safety. And that's when I learned that Big Pharma is one of the top 3 lobbyists. And we just see so much happening because of that. And I don't know if you remember, but Vioxx was actually just a painkiller, and it killed 60,000 people. And David Graham, who was, testified, and he works for the FDA, and that's just a fact. And it caused problems in 2% of the people, a heart attack, blood clots, or strokes. And they managed to get things through the FDA because of the money influence. Like they work their influence all the way up, starting with the doctors all the way up to government.
And is it true that they even work side by side sometimes with the FDA to come up with rules?
Oh yeah, so it's, like I said with the ACA, they were in there also helping write it from what I've read. So we need to be the watchdogs, and we need good oversight.
Okay. All right. Powell memo. Some people might not know what that is.
Well, the Powell memo was written by Lewis Powell, who later became a Supreme Court justice. And he had worked for Big Tobacco, and he was one of the lawyers. And after the environmental movement in the early 70s, he saw that power of the people and doing protests like this. And so he made a call to corporations that it's time for them to fund the movement to really grow the power of corporations in DC, in government. So before that, they weren't playing this game.
What year was that?
1971.
1971.
Yeah.
And since then, could you track this shift?
Oh yeah, it's just been a slow building. The Powell memo talks about, getting into the education system, creating the think tanks, all of this, all the way up. So it's, that's why it took so long to feel it, because it's been a slow building.
Gotcha. Okay, we're almost done here. Union busting.
Oh, you just see this in the right to work states and what's happening, And instead of empowering the people, they're empowering the corporations.
Okay. Change, the same piece we've seen before.
Voter apathy.
And voter apathy.
Yeah.
Folks are just not voting.
Yeah, I had lived in Brazil for 3 years, and their voting is mandatory. They have a federal holiday, and they actually have free airtime for all politicians to speak directly to the voters on TV. They get free airtime, and so that everybody can make informed choices. And here I think people feel that their vote doesn't count. They feel disempowered. But really, we really need to engage. Everybody needs to vote. I would love to see it mandatory. I was actually happy to see Obama spoke about that in January of 2015, and Washington Post and CNN had articles talking about that. And maybe the time has come. Australia used to have non-mandatory voting, and then in 1924 they made it mandatory, and they had the same turnout that we had, and then it jumped to over 90%.
There are some folks that would say the government should enforce me or compel me to exercise a right that I choose to exercise or not. So what would you say to those people?
Well, it's just like jury duty. We all, democracy is a verb. We all have to participate, and it's just a small fine if you don't. It's not like a big deal, but it just really compels most people to vote. You could even go and just have it blank, but at least you're participating. If you want to have a zero vote, you can do that.
And these 4 bills that Democracy Spring is advocating Congress pass, do any of them address this idea that we don't have a national holiday to vote? It's actually in the middle of the week, and it can be very difficult for people to vote.
They don't specifically address that, but 2 of our bills are about voting rights, especially after the Voting Rights Act was gutted.
Section 5 of that, which about pre-clearance. You want to just explain a little bit?
I can't explain right now.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
I want to read up on it, but we've seen the effect. Like, I can tell you what's happened in Arizona. Like Maricopa County, for example, had 1.2 million voters, and just over 80,000 got to vote because they'd cut down polling places. They used to have over 400, then over 200, and now only 60. And you see that and that they're cutting down polling places in the minority neighborhoods and then some of the poorer neighborhoods too. So it would have been clearly, protected before, but since they gutted it, it's not.
Yeah.
And the Department of Justice is actually looking into that now. And also, there's been a funny thing about flipping parties. And across the country, not just in Arizona, but a lot of people have been going online to check whether they're registered, and suddenly their party is switched. So I think some funny stuff is happening that needs to be looked into.
Okay, all right. And lastly, we have call time. Call time. Some people might not know this, but in Washington, there's something called dialing for dollars. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Yes. So since elections have gotten more expensive, we find that politicians have to spend a lot more time, and John Oliver just did a great segment on dialing for dollars, call time, that they just, they go and do their votes, and then they go into cubicles and just ask for money, call, they have phone books, they just go through, and that's, a big part of their day. Instead of thinking about what they should be legislating, talking to their, constituents, it's just calling all the people with a lot of money who could lay down, $1,000.
Gotcha. Holly, thank you so much for walking us through this. Hopefully we'll catch up with you later in the day. All right, we have speakers happening right now. You might be taking a look at them. I'm not quite sure what you're seeing, but let's cut to that and see what's going on the other side.
Arrested on Youth Day. Now, the thing that's troubled me about this movement so far is that though we've got lots of independent media here, I haven't seen CNN, I haven't seen MSNBC, I haven't seen these stations covering what the incredible action you're doing is. And I've asked my friends, why is that? And a friend yesterday said, there are not enough suits down there. Not enough suits down there. So I can tell you I'm wearing a suit, something I never do. I'm wearing a suit because I want them to cover us, because here it is, one suit. Now, I wanted to speak on Youth Day because here's what we know about youth. More than 3/4 of youth support a candidate who believes in single-payer health care. They look at the problem and they say, why not? And 3/4 of youth support a candidate who looks at climate change and says, carbon tax now. They look at it and they say, why not? And 3/4 of you support a candidate who says we should be breaking the big banks up now. Why not? And people my age, when they hear that question, why not? People my age say, hey, grow up. Grow up. Grow up. It can't work like that. Can't work like that. But what we know is it can't work like that because that institution is corrupt. When Madison gave us the Constitution, Madison said that institution would be dependent on the people alone and by the people. He said, I mean, quote, not the rich more than the poor. Not the rich more than the poor. But that institution bends over backwards to figure out what the rich want because the rich fund their campaigns. That's got to stop. And I say it's got to stop, and I say, why not? Why can't it stop? This movement's incredible because people here are demanding the change that tomorrow Congress could pass to end it. On the 6th anniversary of Citizens United, Elizabeth Warren stood up in the Senate and she said, look, Citizens United is a disaster. We need to overturn it. But There are 6 things we could do tomorrow to solve this problem, most important of them, changing the way campaigns are funded. And she said, we need to do that now. And I say, why not? So I'm with you. I'm a suit, and I'm with you. And I'm going to march around this campus of this Capitol, and I'm going to get arrested with you, and I'm going to stand before that judge and say, why not? Why not? Why not? Say it with me. Why not? Why not equality for all? Why not equality for DC? Why not? God damn it! Why not? Thank you very much.
Let's give it up for Lawrence Lessig. All right, so we're going to keep moving right through the speakers. So next up, I want to welcome Samira Khan. So Samira, using her recent pageant victory as Miss New Jersey, United States 2015, she's seeking to raise awareness on the plight of refugees and pursue gender equality here in the U.S. and also maintain a positive image of Islam to potentially end Islamophobia in the United States. So let's welcome Samira to the stage.
I love this crowd. You guys are amazing. It's great to see such passionate individuals so involved in politics. So my name is Samira Khan, Miss New Jersey, United States. And you're probably wondering, what's a pageant title holder or a beauty queen doing up here? Well, I majored in political science. That's what happened. You know, I'm speaking against our current state of a plutocracy. And we're told to stay neutral. Well, I decided against that. As citizens of the United States of America, we hold a moral responsibility to participate in the political process, right? So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me to speak here. The foundational idea of a modern democracy is based on the premise that government derives its... Hold on, I'm shaking because I'm wearing 6-inch heels, so I'm gonna just take them off. The foundational idea of a modern democracy is based on the premise that governance derives its authority from the consent of the governed. Is that happening today? No. We're a plutocracy, not a democracy. We are not a pluralistic society. We are a society of elitism. Is that what the founding fathers wanted for us? No. Our country is governed by the power elite, corporations, lobbyist groups, super PACs. Our system of governments is rigged so that our opinions are invalid. Our politicians do not legislate in accordance with our needs. Corruption in campaign finance, money in politics, both inhibit fair legislation. We can't allow that to happen anymore. Mass mobilization facilitates change. This is why we're here, in solidarity, to protest the actions of our political leaders. We live in a society where the people fear the government when the government should fear its people. Let's remind them that the government answers to us, not to corporations, not to super PACs, and not to lobbyist groups. We need to overturn Citizens United. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Take care. I'll put my shoes back on now.
All right, I'm now joined by Chris Hedges. You know him, Real News regular, New York Times, former New York Times Middle East bureau chief. Chris, you're here today and you're risking arrest. First of all, why is this so important for you to risk arrest?
Because civil disobedience is the only weapon we have left to restore our democracy. At this point, as both the Trump and the Sanders campaign have illustrated, our vote doesn't count. Voting has been replaced by money. And I think that we have to carry out sustained acts of civil disobedience, not only here but throughout the country, in an attempt to wrest back our democracy from corporate power.
How do you go about doing that? Because, some people might see this as just a moment and not necessarily a movement. How do you make that transformation?
We have to begin in the hopes that this will build. At one point, 10,000 Spaniards surrounded the Spanish Parliament and shut it down, and that's kind of what we have to do here. We have to obstruct the machinery of corporate power to such an extent that we force it to respond, that we overload the system, that we make it difficult for the system to work. That will come from many, many fronts. Black Lives Matter, shutting down highways, people shutting down businesses over the call for raising the minimum wage, the anti-fracking movement, shutting down fracking sites. It's a many-pronged front. This is one of them, but that is the only mechanism left.
Also part of this movement is fighting back against voter suppression.
Right.
How do you feel about such actions, voting in particular? Do you think that voting matters? Does pushing back on voter suppression laws actually make a difference if it's still this sort of establishment politics?
It makes a difference locally because it's possible, as we saw with Kshama Sawant, the socialist city councilwoman in Seattle, it's difficult to break through at a local level. At a national level, it's impossible. So voter suppression, of course, is important, fighting voter suppression, but that's really a battle between two corporate tribes, the Democratic corporate tribe and the Republican corporate tribe over power. And so that Republican corporate tribe, which is primarily, the fossil fuel industry, the oil and gas industry, the Democrats being essentially wedded to Wall Street, is about the perks of power. So they seek to disenfranchise the traditional Democratic base, especially African Americans who have nowhere else to go, union workers, but in particular African Americans. So yes, fighting voter suppression is extremely important. But on the national level, as Emma Goldman said, if voting was that effective, it would be illegal. We see the way the system is fixed, the managed democracy. In a fair democratic system, and I mean a system where there were not super PACs and dark money, Bernie Sanders would be the nominee in the Democratic Party, and probably Trump would be in the Republican Party. But the party establishment essentially creates a fixed or rigged system so that their pre-approved candidate, as has been true now for decades, the one who learns through focus groups and opinion polls and, what to say. Obama did it very well. And then, of course, turning right around and serving the various centers of power that is, especially the corporate centers of power that have created such frustration within the electorate.
I'm glad you mentioned the presidential elections earlier, because some folks, especially the Hillary Clinton camp, have said that you cannot necessarily say just because her campaign takes money from corporations, that Wall Street, for example, that means that she's going to do their bidding. There's no direct correlation between the two. What do you say to that argument?
Well, Hillary Clinton has done their bidding along with her husband for 30 years, and the American working class has been devastated because of it. Not only the working class, but in particular the disadvantaged. It was the Clintons who destroyed welfare, gutted welfare. It was the Clintons that passed NAFTA. It was the Clintons that ripped down Glass-Steagall. I mean, we talk about breaking up the big banks. That wouldn't even be an issue if the 1933 Glass-Steagall had not been repealed by the Clinton administration. It was Clinton that exploded the mass incarceration, the Omnibus Crime Bill of 1994. It was Clinton that deregulated the FCC. All of these were done at corporate bidding for corporate money, so that by the 90s the Democratic Party had fundraising parity with the Republican Party, and Barack Obama actually got more. What's remarkable about Clinton is that she's running in defiance of 30 years of public life. She and the Clintons, who, by the way, rose to political power dismantling Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition. By rewriting, Jesse Jackson had opened up the party, especially to African Americans who had not had a place within the party before, and the Clintons rode that neoliberal wave whereby they rewrote the party platform, sanitizing all language about diversity, taking it all out, and spoke in that coded language of white racism, which came to prominence through her phrase super predator. I mean, that was part of a broader coded message to white voters that they were going to keep the poor, and especially poor people of color, disenfranchised. That's the Clintons. That's the origins of the Clintons' political career. Because especially the electronic media, does such a poor job of putting anything in context. Clinton is allowed to make these insane statements that she takes money from these people and doesn't do their bidding. The historical record shows quite the opposite.
Okay, just really quickly, Chris, there are some folks watching this who might be on the fence about whether or not it's worth joining something like Democracy Spring. What would you say to those people?
I would say this is the only weapon we have left. And I mean, we haven't even spoken about climate change. We don't have any time left. We have undergone a corporate coup d'etat in slow motion. It's over. They've won. And either we're going to put our bodies out there and begin to disrupt the system and engage in sustained acts of mass civil disobedience, or we are going to, as we are already seeing, living not in a corporate oligarchic system where half the country lives in poverty, but increasingly in a police state where, as poor people of color already know far too well, we have no rights, whether habeas corpus, privacy, the right to trial. 94% of the people in our prison system never go to trial, and increasingly use of indiscriminate lethal force, not only against poor people of color, but if we become restive, against the rest of us.
All right, Chris Hedges, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us. All right, so we are going to talk with more people here at Democracy Spring. We have speakers currently addressing the rally. It looks like there are a couple of hundred people at the very least here. As I said before, this is Youth Day, so we'll certainly be speaking to students and young people who seem to be quite energized over the issue of getting money out of politics. So let's turn and take a listen to some of these speakers.
Senators accountable. It creates less justice and more hate and division here in Washington, D.C. So I'm glad for your support for our voting rights here in D.C. because, like I said, God is calling us forward into companionship and relationships. Our congregation also advocates for immigrants and refugees, and we have had many of the Dreamers come to Reformation year after year after year. Another group of people who are not recognized as citizens and so don't have a vote. And they have inspired me because they have not stopped organizing and fighting for their rights. And they are starting to change the hearts and minds of all Americans. And I want to do that same thing too. So I'm going to follow the Dreamers. I'm going to follow the civil rights activists before them and in Virginia and elsewhere who are demanding the right to vote there. And I'm glad for your support here too. Thank you, and God bless you all.
All right, everyone, let's give it up for Pastor Mike. All right, so next up, we are going to have Brianna Ross, who's the Vice President of the United States Student Association. Yeah, let's give it up for USSA, one of the steering committee members for Democracy Spring, and one of the country's oldest and largest national student-led association, representing over 1.5 million students, dedicated to building student power and dismantling systems of oppression in higher education through a framework of education justice. And Brianna's the vice president, and she's going to come up and say a few words.
Hello, everyone. How y'all doing? All right. Once again, my name is Brianna Ross. I'm here representing the U.S. Student Association, here representing over 1.5 million students. Before we get started, I want to take a little bit of a poll. How many of you believe that we should stop investing in corporations and industries that profit off the incarceration of black and brown bodies? Okay. How many of you believe that we need to uncoke our campuses and put an end to the privatization in higher education? Okay. All right. Here's the last one. Who believes that we need to end the corruption of big money in our politics and ensure free and fair elections in which every person has a voice? Okay, good. I'm talking to the right people. If you all believe in these things, then you all believe in education justice. Education justice is the fight to dismantle systems of oppression in higher education and inherently fighting against racism, classism, and xenophobia and any of the other systems of oppression that prevent people from accessing higher education. When we talk about education justice, we need to realize if we're going to create a true democracy, this is contingent on creating a society where voter protections are enforced in all 50 states. And making D.C. here the 51st. And we need to make sure that we have a government that is representative of our nation. Let me tell you what education justice isn't. Education justice isn't how our institutions of higher learning have transformed from being systems that educate people to businesses intent on providing a high revenue product without the respect or serving the public good. The same money that's being poured into our political system and corrupting it is the same exact money being poured into corrupting our higher education system. That ain't right. Our institutions of higher learning function as corporations, many of which institutions have been taken over by corporate interests such as the Koch brothers. That ain't right. These corporate actors have normalized the mistreatment of workers. They've made morally corrupt investments and oppressed the voice of our people. When we talk about democracy, we need to realize the political climate that we're in. From the impact of the Citizens United decision, to the uprising of the Black Lives Matter movement, to responding to ICE raids and state-sanctioned violence. These endless attacks on our people, our communities, are underrepresented and show that institutional racism is alive and well. That ain't right. Millennials make up 33% of the electorate. We are the largest, most diverse generation in the history of this country. And we have the power to dramatically alter these systems that perpetuate inequity. We must overturn decisions such as Citizens United that allow the 1% to dominate and be the decision makers. Now that ain't right. We need a government that is representative of the people. And here are our demands. We demand the passage of the Voting Rights Act. We demand the passage of the Voter Empowerment Act. We demand the Democracy for All Amendment. We demand the government by the people and Fair Election Now Acts. And last but definitely not least, we demand a Supreme Court nominee that will not strive solely for equality, but a government that is truly democratic and representative of the needs of all underrepresented communities. I am so excited to be here with y'all, and the Democracy Spring is really a reflection of the process of revolutionary change. Hundreds of arrests, thousands of miles traveled, over 140 miles marched, and thousands of people sitting in to demand change. Now that is powerful. I believe in change, and I believe that we can put an end to the corruption of money in politics and ensure that election reform becomes a reality where all voices are represented, all voices are heard, and we can reclaim our democracy. And I believe that we will win. Do y'all believe? Yeah. I believe. I believe. I believe that. I believe that. I believe that we. I believe that we. I believe that we will. I believe that we will. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. Woo! All right, let's give it up one more time for Brianna. All right, y'all, we got two more speakers. So first, we got student Anthony Torres, who's a fossil fuel divestment organizer at American University and focuses on how we can reinvest in creative community solutions to our democracy and the climate crisis. So I want to welcome Anthony to the stage.
Hi everyone, once again, I'm Anthony Torres and I'm representing Fossil Free American University. Let me hear it from the fellow young divestment and climate organizers out here in the crowd. I am so privileged to stand here today for Democracy Spring and to share the stage with some incredible organizers from our Millennial Movements for Justice. This has been a powerful week. And first, I want to take a moment to thank all of the amazing logistics and coordinators who've made this event possible and made this week incredible and heard across the country. Let's hear it for them. This has been a powerful week here in DC. We have hundreds of young people, hundreds of people across the country willing to risk arrest, to stand in the face of this Congress to demand an end to the corporate influence of our democracy. We have hundreds more of young people who are ready to stand here today and tomorrow, not just for our democracy, but for our climate.
Yeah. It's real.
And we are standing here today with incredible actions occurring across the country at the University of Mary Washington, at Columbia University, at JMU, at University of Massachusetts, where students are sitting in and demanding an end to the fossil fuel investments that govern our higher education system. Young people are leading the fight against the corporate takeover of our democracy and climate injustice. Fossil fuel money and the climate culprits cannot be expected to solve the climate crisis. Those who are going to make the change and fight for justice in this country are the people who are standing here today. We need to divest from the corporate influence on our college campuses, in our communities, and in our Congress. And we need to reinvest in an alternative future. Together, our millennial movements for racial justice, for climate justice, for immigrant justice, for economic justice must stand together and decolonize our imaginations of what is possible in this country. So say it with me. What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. Thank you, everybody. And let's continue standing here today, this week, and moving forward for a more just future for this country. Thank you.
All right.
Now repeat after me. What do we want?
Welcome back. We're here at Capitol Hill, Democracy Spring, Day 5. I'm now joined by Harvard Law Professor Lawrence Lessig. You probably heard him earlier speaking. Professor Lessig, thank you so much for being with us.
Great to be here. Thanks for covering us.
So I see you have an armband, so you are risking arrest, and as you said, a suit risking arrest.
A suit risking arrest, that's right.
Why is this so important to you?
Oh man, because I know, like the vast majority of Americans know, that if we don't solve this problem, we are cooked as a country. Every single important issue that we face will not get solved until we solve this corruption first. So I don't care whether you care about student debt or health care or about climate change or about an economy that can actually grow or about Wall Street. Doesn't matter what your issue is. We cannot solve that problem until we solve this corruption first.
Okay, let's talk about these 4 bills that are being proposed. Just give us a briefly, what do they each do, and why do you think they're why are they so close to becoming a reality but not a reality?
Yeah, well, you can think of all of them as a way to try to restore the idea of equality in a representative democracy, right? The idea of representative democracy is we're all supposed to have equal power, but we don't right now. One of the most important reasons we don't is because of the way we fund campaigns, right? So candidates for Congress and members of Congress spend anywhere between 30 and 70% of their time raising money from the tiniest fraction of the 1%. Well, they're human. If they do that, you understand exactly why they bend over backwards to keep those people happy, because they know they need them. But if we could change the way campaigns are funded, which 2 of these bills would do, the Government by the People Act and the Fair Elections Now Act, by making it so either people have vouchers that they use to fund small dollar funded campaigns, or matching funds, so a small contribution is worth, in the Government by the People Act, up to $1,000, $100 can be worth $1,000, then they would start raising money from all of us. And if they raised money from all of us, then they would be responsive to all of us and not responsive to this tiny few. That's the most important change. Now, in addition to that, what this group is pushing for is to establish equality in the ability to vote again. Like, it's outrageous. We live in a country where states are able to put burdens on the ability of people to vote, and those burdens are not accidental. They're political, which of course means in many cases they're racial. So in Ohio, Brennan Center found you could explain the difference in the time that it takes to vote simply on the basis of the color of the skin of the voter. If you're a black voter, it takes longer to vote substantially than it does for a white voter. And for many people, if you've got childcare and an iPhone, what do you care if it takes half an hour to vote? But if you're doing 2 jobs, you got nobody home with the kids, then that is a poll tax. And that poll tax means you can't vote. And that's the purpose of these differences. So the reforms that would change the ability to vote including the Voting Rights Enhancement Act to respond to the Supreme Court's ridiculous interpretation of the Voting Rights Act, and also to make it so that people can vote easily on holidays. These are changes that would make it easy for everybody to participate. Those are the critical changes Congress could pass tomorrow. And what we need to do is to force people to recognize, to give people a sense that these changes are possible, and if we actually got them, we would get a democracy back.
Let's talk about one specific bill, the Democracy for All bill, which is a constitutional amendment. It would limit the amount of campaign contributions one donor could give. Is that accurate? Or how would you explain it?
Well, it's a constitutional amendment that would effectively overturn Citizens United and give Congress the power once again to limit contributions.
Okay.
Now, my view has been the decision of the Supreme Court, which created a different decision that gave us super PACs, is a terrible inequality inside of our system. The challenge we face, though, is that there has never been an amendment to the Constitution that has not had bipartisan support since the Civil War. Never one. And we are in a political reality where the Republican Party is opposed to any such change. Now, they shouldn't be. I think the base of the Republican Party hates this corrupt system just as much as Democrats, but that's the reality.
58 senators, though, supported it. Is that right?
Well, 58, it takes 2/3 of the Senate to pass. And I don't think 58, because I don't think there's one Republican who has yet supported it. So I think it's an important thing to push for as an ideal to bring people in. But the more important thing to push for are the changes that could really happen tomorrow. And those are changes that don't require 2/3 of the senators and then 3/4 of the states, right? Because it takes 38 states to pass an amendment. Those are the changes that take a simple majority in Congress. And we could build the power to demand a simple majority in Congress, and that's what I think we have to fight for. And that's what's so powerful about this movement. The presidential candidates on the Democratic side, at least, and Donald Trump on the Republican side, have talked about the corruption of this system, right? And the Democratic candidates, whenever they talk about it, they talk about Citizens United. And again, that's a problem, Citizens United. But what they need to be talking about is the thing that we could actually do tomorrow. Because if you gave people a sense that there's something we could do tomorrow, they would wake up and they would want to help to support getting it done.
What do you say to folks who say, yes, perhaps the system is corrupt, yes, perhaps it is leaning towards the elite and the wealthy interests. However, there are folks like Bernie Sanders who are able to get folks to contribute $27 on average, and he's able to actually compete with Hillary Clinton in many, many contests. So why do we need these type of laws?
So there's a huge difference between the presidency and Congress. And this is one of the problems. We focus on the presidency, but it's that institution that is the failed institution in our democracy. And the only way that institution becomes uncorrupted is if we change the way they fund their campaigns. They cannot fund their campaigns the way Bernie Sanders does. It's just not possible. I mean, there's some who can, some on the left and some on the right. Elizabeth Warren could fund her campaigns like that. People on the right have been able to fund their campaigns like that. But the mass in Congress could not fund their campaigns like that. Just not enough appeal. And so if we don't accept that reality and respond to it by bringing money into the system so that they don't have to sell themselves out to the richest in their districts, we're going to live with this corrupted, incapable of functioning institution, and that's the core problem we have to find a way to address.
So how do we transform what we're seeing here? Some people might interpret it as just a moment. How do you transform it into a movement?
Well, I think that this pressure has got to be brought back to candidates. And we've got to get candidates, not just presidential candidates, especially members of Congress, and ask them, where do you stand on this? What do you commit to? Will you commit to co-sponsoring this fundamental reform when you get to Congress? And if we can get a majority who commits to that, some on the Republican side, the majority on the Democratic side, then you give the president something to fight for. Most candidates, I think, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton both have a great platform, but they don't articulate this change because they don't believe they could get the support in Congress for it. Well, we just got to give them a Congress that would support it, and then they pick it up and they do something.
All right. Professor Lessig, thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch up with you later. All right. So We are going to be following the protesters. They're making their way to the Capitol building. As I said, this is day 5 of Democracy Spring. People have performing sit-ins since Monday. On the first day, there were more than 400 people arrested. It was unprecedented. Capitol Police said they have never arrested that many people in a sit-in here at the Capitol. Also, we had on Tuesday about 50 people arrested. On Wednesday, larger numbers because of the racial justice theme. There were about 100 people. Yesterday, there were dozens or so arrested. But today, this is Youth Day. You have a lot of students here, a lot of student associations, student groups, all here with one message. They want Congress to get money out of politics. So we are going to be following the marchers. Let's go, Cameron. Let's start following them and seeing what's happening.
Very appropriate song. I want y'all to sing along with me, at least the chorus, if not more, if you know some of the words.
I just wanted to be nosy and ask which outlet you guys are.
Hold up.
Yeah. Is there, how do I say media?
Pete Seeger would be here singing it. You gonna mix Pete Seeger? A lot of you older folks know this, and some of the younger folks know it. I had a hammer, I had a hammer. Oh, this man, I had my baby.
Most of them were on the march. Philadelphia. I walked down here 140 miles. I walked. Hey, would y'all help me with a chant? Would y'all help me with a chant? Hey, Congress! Hey, Congress! Hey, hey! Watch out, big sign. I am the voice of democracy. I am the voice of democracy. One person, one vote. 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 Overturn! Citizens United! Overturn! Citizens United! Overturn! Citizens United! Overturn! Citizens United! Overturn! Overturn! Citizens United! Overturn! Citizens United! One person, one vote! One person, one vote! One person, one vote! One person, one vote!
themselves in no position to assess. Period. What do you think? What,
corporations are people. Money ain't speech, corporations are people. Democracy's free, the movement's coming to you. Democracy's free, the movement's coming to you. Democracy spring, sit and sit and. Democracy spring, sit and sit. Democracy spring, sit and sit. Democracy spring, sit and sit. One person, one vote. One person, one vote. Listen up and take note. Listen up and take note. Non-violent action. Non-violent action. Is the people's hope. Is the people's hope. God give the people hope. God give the people hope. One person, one vote. One person, one vote. Listen up and take note. Listen up and take note. Non-violent action. Non-violent action. Gives the people hope. Gives the people hope. Gotta give the people hope. Gotta give the people hope. I said money ain't speech. Corporations aren't people. 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 One person, one vote. One person, one vote. Listen up and take note. Listen up and take note. Non-violent action. Non-violent action. Gives the people hope. Gives the people hope. Gotta give the people hope. Gotta give the people hope. When I say people, you say power. People. Power. People. Power. People. Power. When I say 15, you say hour. 15. Hour. 15. Hour. When I say people, you say power. When I say students, you say power. Students. Power. Students. Power. When I say 15, you say hour. 15. Hour. 15. Hour. When I say students, you say power. Students. Power. Students. Power. When I say 15, you say hour. 15. Hour. 15. Hour. Who are we? Democracy spring. When I say democracy, you say spring. Democracy. Spring. Democracy. Spring. Democracy. Spring. Democracy. Spring. Democracy. Spring. Democracy. Spring. People
is high. Give me a call.
The people's house. Whose government? Our government. Whose government? Our government. Whose house? Our house. Whose Congress? Our Congress. Whose Congress? Our Congress. The people are on the move. 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 Say what? The people are on the move. The people are on the move. Say what? The people are on the move. The people are on the move. Say what? The people are on the move. The people are on the move. Say what? The people are on the move.
All right, so we are here in the middle of the crowd. 5th day of Democracy Spring here on Capitol Hill. Not all of these folks are going to be performing a sit-in. You have to look for the people with the armbands that say Democracy Spring, the white armbands. They will be risking arrest. They've been given warnings that they have to push back if you are not participating in the sit-in. Capitol Police have warned them, so it might get very contentious if people don't listen to the officers. So we'll have to wait and see. But as I said earlier, this is Youth Day. You have a lot of students here, a lot of student organizations here. We're going to try to talk to some folks as well. Excuse me, sir. So you are participating in this Democracy Spring. Why is it so important to you?
Well, I have grandchildren, and there are grandchildren all over the country that we're standing here for freedom today. And we want to get money out of politics. And we want the people to be restored to democracy. And so that's why all of us are here. It came from Oregon to be here for this week.
Wow.
And so anyhow, it's just the thing to do.
So tomorrow there's a Climate Justice Day and Monday as well. Will you be a part of those actions?
Right. We'll be here on Sunday and Monday both.
Okay.
On Saturday, we're going to New York City to march with Bernie.
I see you have a Bernie Sanders button, Bernie shirt. You're from Oregon. Senator Merkley actually just endorsed Bernie.
Senator Merkley is a wonderful senator.
And why do you support Bernie Sanders?
Because Bernie speaks the truth. He speaks from his heart, and he speaks for all of us, for everything that we need to do to change this country into a real democracy.
What specifically, what policies attract you?
The policies related to money in government. Too many legislators are owned by the corporations. We want universal health care for all. We're working on single-payer health care in Oregon, but we need it all across the country. We're working against climate change. Oregon is being severely hurt by the lack of water from the rain instead of snow. And so the salmon are suffering, the farmers are suffering, the ranchers are suffering, all of us are.
And money is affecting those policies.
Money controls all of those things. And so we get people who are owned by the corporations who say there's no climate change. There's nothing that people are doing to affect this. Well, of course we are. Everyone is affected.
All right. Thank you so much for talking with us. All right. So let's continue and try to chat with some more folks here. Hi,
hey.
Allie, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good. So this is Allie McCracken with Code Pink. So Allie, why is Code Pink out here? You guys are usually anti, drones and foreign policy oriented, but why this issue?
Well, we're out here at Democracy Spring calling for money out of politics because we know that weapons manufacturers are some of the highest campaign contributors in the whole political arena. And these weapons manufacturers are keeping us in a state of endless war by bribing our politicians. We want elections, not auctions. We want an end to endless wars, and we want our democracy back. And so I'm here today as a 27-year-old on the Youth Day because I feel like this really impacts my future. It impacts everyone's future, but I want to see this country be a better place for my generation and generations to come.
Typically, people say young people are apathetic, they're not engaged. This election cycle, we certainly have seen more young people come out for Bernie Sanders and supporting Bernie Sanders campaign. Do you feel like there is a turn, just in your conversations, in your everyday dealings with your peers, do you feel like the conversation is shifting? Are people wanting to get more engaged in politics?
Yeah, definitely. I think with the rise of Bernie Sanders, he's given young people an outlet to kind of come out politically. A lot of my apolitical friends are now outspoken supporters of Bernie Sanders. I think that young people are really fed up with the cost of high tuition rates, with our communities being defunded, but things like war continuing to be funded with trillions and trillions of dollars. And so I think definitely that the tides are turning. There is a movement on the left rising, and it is youth-driven in many ways. You just have to look at the demographic here at Democracy Spring to see that.
Okay, there's some folks who, because you know foreign policy, they say that there's not much room between Hillary and Bernie, specifically on Israel and other issues of that concern when it comes to America being sort of this dominant military force in the world. So do you share those same views, and where do you sort of evaluate Bernie Sanders' stances on those issues?
Well, in some ways, I do share those values, but those beliefs. But over the last few months, we've seen Bernie move in many ways further to the left. Just last night, there was a Democratic debate between Hillary and Bernie Sanders, and when the issue of Israel-Palestine came up, Hillary was way more to the right of Bernie Sanders. He came out, he spoke about Gaza, he spoke about dignity and human rights for the Palestinians, and that's an extremely important issue to many people in my generation, including myself. Bernie still needs a lot of work on the issue of drones and cutting the military budget, but he does have a strong position about strength to diplomacy. And Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, is a war hawk. She's supported many militaristic foreign policies while she was Secretary of State and while she was the senator. And so at Code Pink, we don't endorse either candidate, but we are committed to pushing them both and holding them to a higher standard so we can start funding our communities and stop funding war.
Okay, Allie, thank you so much for joining us. All right, so we are being told that we have to go to the grassy knoll area because things are going to get more contentious. As you can see, the police officers here, they've sort of penned in all the protesters, those who are going to be part of the sit-in. So we are being told that we have to go to the grassy area or else we risk arrest as well. So we are going to move here and to the side. So as we said before, this is Democracy Spring, Day 5 here on Capitol Hill. First day, there were about 400 people arrested here on the steps of the Capitol. It was historic. Capitol Police had never seen that many people get arrested and participating in a sit-in. Second day, there were about 50 or so people. That was Elders' Days. You had senior citizens coming out saying that they are here fighting for a better democracy for their grandchildren, their children. Third day was Racial Justice Day. You had many members of the Black Lives Matter movement here saying that nothing in terms of reforming the criminal justice system can get passed unless you get money out of politics because of the for-profit prison industrial complex. And then yesterday we had Labor Day. It was essentially a day with many unions, Good Jobs Nation, a movement that really started here in Washington because you have federal employees, those who work in federal buildings, I should say, who are working for private contractors, food industry folks like McDonald's, Burger King, that have contracts with the federal government to operate in places like the Air and Space Museum, different Smithsonian museums all across the city. So they are saying that the president, who does have the authority to increase wages because President Obama did actually do so with a 10-10 increase from the previous minimum wage, but they would like to see $15 an hour. So that was yesterday. And today's theme is all about youth, student protesting. I mean, there are many issues, especially college debt. We've heard from folks saying that they would like Congress to pass some sort of legislation that would forgive debt, because many students are saddled with many loans coming out of school, saying that they've done everything they were supposed to do, but now they are in debt, cannot find a job, and it's very hard for them, and they don't see a very bright future. So as you can hear, police are saying if you don't want to be arrested, you have to move to the grass. There are folks here sitting down who, yes, as you see. So we are going to move to that grassy area. But we do have a media section that we're going to be moving to, and hopefully we will be okay. So we are being told that we are allowed to go to the press area now, and media is allowed to be closer because they're allowing us to see what is actually going on and how Capitol Police is handling the protesters right now. So we are moving. We are moving to the press area. I would say there are about 100 or so folks here who are risking arrest. They all have a band, this white band of solidarity that says Democracy Spring. There are some folks here that we've already interviewed. Chris Hedges, former New York Times Bureau Chief for the Middle East, as well as Harvard professor Lawrence Lessig here. We have some members of Code Pink. As you can see standing there, there's Medea Benjamin. She's holding a microphone. Here she's speaking right now. Let's listen in.
You can do a summer job, make a little bit of money, and pay for your entire year of college. It don't work like that anymore, does it? Raise your hand if you have any college debt. You know, it makes no sense because you were doing a service to this country by going to college. And you know what happens in other countries? Not only is the college free, you get a stipend for going to college, because in other countries they want you to go to college because they understand that they need an educated population to move their country forward. So as part of this teaching, who knows what is represented by $1.2 trillion? Total student debt. Next to mortgage debt is the #1 debt in this country is student debt. Shame! Shame! In 2015, what was the average debt per college student? $35,000. Shame! You have 70,000. How much debt do you have? 85,000. Can somebody write 35,000 up here for me? How much do you have? 15 grand. Boo! How much do you have? 70,000. Boo! 40,000. Boo! Boo! Terrible. All right, the number of people in this country with student debt, how many is it? It is 40 million people. Write that down, 40 million people. Absolutely ridiculous, 40 million people. So we want to also let you know how many people are either defaulting or can't pay their student loans. Well, it's 1 out of 4, so that would be 10 million people in this country have defaulted. What? Should a disabled veteran have to pay student loans? Should any veteran have to pay student loans? Should anyone living in this country have to pay student loans? Alright, so I also wanted to let you know that among those people who have the most student loans, it is women and people of color. Why do you think that is? From our great-grandparents, sexism, racism, state power, and corporate power are all inseparably intertwined. They serve each other. Okay, this is a very smart student here. Let's give her a hand. Did you learn that in college or did you learn outside? All right, all right. So anybody else want to say why they think it is that women and people of color have the most debt? Yeah.
Get away with. We get subprime loans for their houses and we get subprime loans for our school. That's what happens.
I think women and people of color are the most in debt with student loans because we don't have representation in this house.
Anybody else want to add to the reasons? Exactly, pay equity, because once you get out and you get a job, you get paid less than white men would get paid, and so it's easier for them to repay the student loan. And in terms of people of color, they come generally from households that have less income, so they have to take out more student loans, right? So I'm going to hand over this to Chris Hedges, but as the part of the teach-in, what are we going to do about it? Sit in, sit in. Sit in, sit in. Sit in, sit in. All right, and I want to tell you one statistic that I heard that leaves me really, really hopeful. And I saw it in a paper that doesn't always tell the truth, and that's the Washington Post. And the Washington Post said there was a poll done that said the majority of young people under 30 have a more favorable view of socialism than of capitalism. Now that is totally extraordinary. That will change the face of this country for years to come if you don't lose that idealism. So hang on to it. No, the system is rotten. The system won't even give you an education for free. We got to transform this system into one that cares about students, that cares about the elderly, that cares about the inequalities that are systemic, and is going to change it. Thank you. Long live the students.
Thank you. Let's not forget that today is Emancipation Day. Hundreds of African Americans built that house and they were never paid for their labor, and their children were never paid for that labor, and their grandchildren were never paid for that labor, and they still, to this day, have never been compensated for their labor. The original sin of America is genocide and slavery. And that sin has crept into every pore of this country until we ourselves have become captive to the capitalist forces that exploit indigenous people, African Americans, and women, and have carried out a corporate coup d'etat. We did not do enough for fight for freedom for our brothers and sisters in indigenous communities and for African Americans, and we are not doing enough now. And the capitalist forces that exploited and destroyed their lives, rent their families, carried out a campaign of genocide, have now taken complete control of this country. There is no way to vote against the interests of Goldman Sachs or ExxonMobil or Citibank or any other corporation. And this house has become their brothel. They roam these corridors when we are kept outside. They write the legislation that slowly disempowers, disenfranchises, and impoverishes us all. Have turned sacrifice zones, coast cities, coalfields of southern West Virginia, produce fields in Florida and California.
Mike.
power of the Democrats. The only way you will overthrow this. It is a battle for life, and not just our life, the life of all species, the life of this planet. It is a battle for the sacred, and any society that does not honor the sacred, any society that does not grasp that life has an intrinsic value beyond a monetary value, kills itself. And that is why what we are doing today is important and must be sustained. And I am proud to be here with you, and I will stand or sit with you until they come and take me away. Thank you.
So you're gonna have to, for your exam, you're gonna have to know what is a corporate coup d'etat, and who can tell me how you spell disobedience? Is it with an A or an E here? An E? Raise your hand if you think it's an E. Raise your hand if you think it's an A. All right, the E has it.
Great. So next up, we're going to have Alexandra Florence Quilty, the president of the United States Student Association. We heard from the vice president, Raymond, a little bit earlier. Tim Pugh is going to talk a little bit more about what education is like for students and young men.
Hello everyone. I'm such an honor to be here with you all today. Talking good? Can you all? Okay, I'll talk louder. Okay, my name's Alexandra Florence Quilty. I am the president of the United States Student Association. We are a collective of 1.5 million college students across the country fighting for education justice. And as we start to handcuff us now and take us away, I'm going to talk with you all about what education justice means. So, organizations like college students across the country, many folks in our organization are private organizations, and we're united by a vision for education justice. As we all know, the current education system we have now affects a lot of communities and makes it inaccessible, if not completely inaccessible for a lot of communities, right? Right? Okay. So for us, students across the country are organizing right now. The movement is alive and well, right? The movement is alive and well. That's right. And having actions and civil speeches across the country. People are organizing right now on a lot of different issues. But we have a unified vision of what the world we want to look like and how we're fighting for it. So how many people here have organized around fossil fuels or climate change? Raise your hand. Woo! How many people have organized with Black Lives Matter, Black Liberation? Raise your hand. That's right. How many people have organized for immigrant justice and undocumented student access? That's right. How many people organize for workers' rights and workers' justice? That's right. What other issues are you all organizing around right now? Money out of politics. That's right. What was it? Veterans' rights. That's right. Voting access. Right. Global justice. Publicly funded campaigns. Right. Safety and access to bathrooms, transgender rights. Right. Okay, so for what we see on our campuses, right, as a microcosm represents the larger systemic oppression that we see in our communities and in our society, right? And so we recognize that we believe that education is a right that should be accessible to all people. Do you all agree with that? Education is a right. Education is a right. Education is a right. That's right. Okay, and so we recognize, though, that the current system has always and has continued to exploit certain communities and stop them from accessing the higher education system. And even when they do access it, our with barrier after barrier. These are Black students, brown students, women, undocumented students, veterans, all sorts of communities. Huh? Poor students, that's right. And so one of the most overarching things that affects every single student today is the cost of education. We just talked about the total student debt. How much is the total student debt right now? $1.3 trillion. $1.3 trillion. That's right. Okay. It's right. It's increasing every single day. We are in an economic crisis, a bubble that's about to burst. And why is it? Why do we have a system in which we believe that students, young people who want to get an education, should have to sit there and be in a lifetime of debt? Greed. That's right. People are trying to make a profit off of our education, off the dreams of our families, the dreams of our community for us to get education and have a better life. That ain't right. That ain't right. Okay, so education justice is about removing every single systemic barrier in the higher education system that prevents communities from accessing it and also deters the quality of education for those communities. So our fight is not done until every single one of those barriers is removed. That's why we're fighting for free education, right? Free college. People agree with free college, yeah? That's right. That's why we're fighting for racial justice in our society and in our higher education systems, right? And that's why we're also fighting to make sure we're understanding our role in the larger world, that we're making sure that we're not having our universities endowment money in the fossil fuel industry. Is that right? Okay. So I'm going to invite up my friend Lydia up here to talk about the climate justice. Thank you. Land underwater, what else? Oil spills, hell yeah. What? Soil erosion, that's right. Deforestation. Yes, refugee crisis, exactly. Extreme weather, exactly. And who gets go ahead. Native Americans not being able to use the traditional. Also, Native Americans their land being taken from them for the extractive industry. Okay, and who can tell me who's most? On that note, who can tell me who's most affected by climate change? Poor people. Who else? People of color. Indigenous communities. Who else? Developing nations. Exactly. Everyone. The whole economic system is affected. Exactly. If we don't get this right, we're shit out of luck. So, who can tell me what we do about it? Who here has been involved in climate justice campaigning? No fracking in New York. What else? No fracking anywhere. Who can tell me what fracking is? That's an extra credit question. That's right. They drill into the land, into the rock, and extract the naturally gases, the rock, and the oil. They drill the contaminated water. And what's that doing to the community, particularly in Pennsylvania and Kentucky? Poisoning the water. Flint, Michigan. Exactly. So earthquakes in Oklahoma. That is crazy. All right. What other campaigns have folks been involved in? What have you done? Divest! Woo! Tell us what divest is. Yes, we don't want to invest in fossil fuels. You can divest your fuels, you can divest your endowments, you can divest everything from fossil fuels. And what does that do? It takes the power away from the big polluters. Look at my shirt. Dirty energy money cycle. What the heck is that? This is it. This is it. You know, Exxon, over the past 10 years, Exxon has donated $150 million in lobbying contributions. Okay? We invest. Okay. In Pennsylvania, the gas industry's $1.5 billion contribution to congressmen allowed them to escape $500 million taxes that would have gone to the people of Pennsylvania.
Exactly. So not only are they buying out our Congress, but looting our planet with their own money. Right back in their pockets. Exactly. So we got to fight against it. That's why I'm here today. My name is Lydia. I'm the Executive Director of Energy Action Coalition. We work with young people on climate justice. Come talk to me.
All right, so what we want to do now is we want to extend an invitation to the group and see if there are folks that want to come up and teach us about something. I'm going to call on this young woman in the back. When you're introducing yourself, you can give your name, your gender pronouns, if you're going to school right now, what school you're at, and then teach us all of that. And why you're here today, and then teach us something, and let's continue with like education of like building our movement and building our community together.
All right, hey everyone, I'm Sarah Lee Griffin, and I came up from Nashville. All right, and so I came up from Nashville, and my name is Sarah Lee, and okay, so I'm here today. I'm not a student currently. I used to be. I'm 25, so that time is past for me right now. I'm still a student of life though. So that's why I'm here, because I think that we need to get money out of politics so that our generation has a voice. Anyway, so what I wanted to share today is I had written a version of Prince's beginning to Let's Go Crazy for Democracy Spring. So I'm going to perform that for you guys today, all right? All right, okay. I gotta go, okay. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. Electric word life, it means forever, and that's a mighty long time. But I'm here to tell you, there's something else. Democracy. A world of never-ending equality. You can always have your voice heard, rich or poor. So when you vote for that person in Washington, D.C., you know the one. Doctor, I'm going to change the world for the better. Instead of asking how they're going to create change, ask who funds their campaign. Because in this country, things are much harder than in a democracy. In this country, we are the 99%. And if the oligarchy tries to bring you down, sit in. Make sure your voice is heard. Go crazy! I am a retired teacher from New York. I want you to know what the system is doing to our students, our inner city students. The Detroit teachers had to go out on strike because their schools are not being funded. Where is that money going? Not into the schools, not into the students. In South Carolina, they can't get teachers because they do not pay them, because they do not let them unionize. Schools that are not unionized have the lowest outcomes. In New York, we have been fighting these outrageous tests, originally produced by Pearson, a company from overseas who has destroyed our system. We have children sitting 3 days in a row, at least 2 hours a day, two weeks in a row, taking tests that mean nothing. They do not get evaluated by these tests. The teachers get evaluated by these tests. Students who take them could be new English learners, could be low-income children who have not had benefit of good education. They could be children who need
bills against voting discrimination that were struck down by the United States Supreme Court in the Shelby Counter versus Holder decision, and make additional critical updates to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. You want to vote? Give me some noise for voting. Come on. Thank you. The Voter Empowerment Act, legislation to modernize voter registration and prevent deceptive practices like, anybody else experience deceptive practice with voting? We've had students who were turned away because they had a passport. Somebody who was working the polls didn't know that. That was okay. Exactly. So, the Democracy for All Amendment, a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. Yes, which was icing on a really nasty cake. All right? The Government by the People Act and the Fair Elections Now Act, a small donor empowerment measure that would encourage and amplify small contributions from everyday Americans. You know what that means? That's a public financing system. That means that we have the voice, not somebody else that looks like Exxon. We get to spend $5. If I want to run for office, I want to go up to you, and I want to go up to you and anybody in my neighborhood and say, hey man, I want to run for office. What do you care about? And actually get to represent you. That's what public financing does. All right, wait for a little break. Are you ready for a song? All right, students. You gotta sing along with me. I'll say it first and then you do it, okay? This is Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, okay? Do is what corporations make. Raising our democracy. Me, someone I'd like to save. Founding fathers, hear our pleas. So, oligarchy must go. Law is what we have to break. TV news we seldom make, but we haven't have the dough is what corporations make, erasing our democracy. Me, someone I'd like to save, founding fathers, hear our pleas. So, oligarchy must go. Law is what we have to break. TV news we seldom make, cause we haven't had the dough. Very good, excellent. So raise your hands who wants to speak. Let's see how many people we have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I saw your hand up first. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Hello everyone, I am PJ. I am a combat medical specialist veteran. I provided support to our soldiers from 1997 to 2000. From 1997 to 2000, I provided support to our soldiers serving overseas where I was. The problem I have with our government is I am a disabled veteran. I took an oath to fight all enemies, foreign and domestic, in this country. I come home. It took them a year to fix my knee. I live on an ACL that was completely torn in half. I am also asthmatic. They like to cut costs on medications that work for us veterans. I now am being forced to take a medication that would cost me $400 a month with a black box label that specifically says not for asthmatics, so I am taking a chance on my health. take up. If you've been watching the media, you've noticed there's been no coverage. And when there's a tiny little bit of coverage, it's so condescending. They talk about us as if we don't know how government really works. They talk about us as if we don't know how the economy really works. And these are the same people who did such a good job of running our economy in 2008, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of them turning against each other. Here we mostly, I see, we're a lot of progressives, but I think that this Democrat and Republican issue is bullshit. Monsanto doesn't just pay the Democrat side, they pay the Republican side. Exxon isn't just on the Republican side, they're on the Democrat side. You think the coke cutters, you think they take sides? No, they're paying everybody. Our money is in all of their pockets because they take the taxes from us and they use the laws for them. So I want us to get, when you go out, wherever you're going, don't let them turn you against each other. Even if they're Trump people, whatever people they are, whatever they support, don't let them tricking you to think your brothers and sisters are your enemies. They're not the enemy. The moneyed interests are the enemy. The liars are the enemy. People who want to silence us are the enemies. Don't be confused. I am here representing Spelman College. Yeah, you can't go. You can't go. I'm here representing Spelman College, and I think that's important because HBCUs do not get the funding that majority institutions get. And I think that's a shame.
See, I'm being hauled away right now to be arrested, and I wanted to be able to speak first. Thank you for waiting. Everyone is being hauled away today. Get the microphone before you go and speak your piece. I'm representing the West Coast. I live in California, but I've been working in Washington on the initiative 735 to get big money out of politics. It's made it on the ballot in November. Washington State is going to get to vote on it. It may become the 18th state to pass that resolution. And once we get more states on board, eventually it's going to tip the balance, and we're going to have to get big money out of politics. It's too bad it's up to the state to do this. It's a lot of freaking work for each state to do this. And it should have just been done right here. These are our people we wouldn't need to be able to elect people who are going to speak for us and do our bidding, which is to get big money out of politics. So everybody grab the microphone before they haul you away. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Nelson. I just want to say the first time that I got arrested was in 1968 at an induction center trying to keep people from being sent to Vietnam. And I've been an anti-nuclear person ever since. And this government is not doing what the agreement was in reducing and eliminating nuclear power and weapons. In fact, they're making more compact and much more powerful ones, and they're disobeying the international agreements on this. And I think it's a travesty, and you should know that, because that's going to affect our climate. The radiation is going to affect us all, and it's bad news. So I just wanted to say very briefly that part of what we were trying to do with this event is make sure that we are putting voices front and center, not only of like students and young people, even students in Student Youth Day, but also like creating a space and a time that is like lifting up the voices of those whose voices are not like put front and center all the time. We do want to welcome all voices, but we want to make sure that we are creating a community where we are being able to like take the space to put some of those voices first, and then in time be able to ensure that all voices are heard. So I just wanted to say that. So we're going to let the young woman speak here who's been waiting for a little bit, and
then from there, let's just try and keep that in mind if there are women, if there are young people, if there are folks of color, queer and trans folks, and elderly folks as well. And we do, so we're going to go here, and then we'll go over here, absolutely. And then let's just make sure and keep an eye on that as we're moving forward. And also remembering that, like, let's take this time to learn and teach each other things as well.
Thank you guys. I'm here representing Green Mountain College. We're an environmental liberal arts school located up in Vermont. But I have a non-environmental question to ask you guys. Who here has an idea of how much money the NRA donated to congressional campaigns in the 2014 election cycle? Let me say it again. $2.7 million. Yeah, that is a lot of money, and I welcome the opinions of people who support the Second Amendment. I support the Second Amendment too. If you want to go hunting, it's all good. But, well, I respect the opinions of everybody. But I think there's an undeniable correlation between the lack of sensible gun reform that we have not seen in the past years since we've had mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Last year, guys, we had more mass shootings than there were days of the year. And that is not acceptable. You should not have to go into your school and think, I might get shot today. Whether you go to big school, little school, whether you're 5 or 15 or 25, that is unacceptable. And there's an undeniable correlation between the amount of money the NRA donates to congressional campaigns and the absolute lack of action that Congress has made on sensible gun reform. So that's why I'm here, in addition to climate change. Thank you, guys. Another speaker, I want to say this. First off, thank the police officers for being so polite to us. You are good police officers. You want to spend or be bad with this. You're good police officers. They work hard. They don't get paid much. And they risk their lives every day for the American people. Along with Navy veterans, which I am, and veterans on the whole that risk their lives for the country. I'm here as a Navy veteran. I'm also here as a grandmother. I want my grandchildren to have one voice, one vote. Democracy that is paid up and not paid, and only works for the 1%. I want our children to think college is not in war. War is only about all power and money. It's not about the people on either side. They're trying to make the people get rich. And I just want to say I thank you all for being here. And it's a miracle I'm here. I am disabled and I will not have my pain, but I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm done. And if we lose our democracy, if we lose our freedom, we've lost everything. I'm 70 years old. I've never been arrested. I guess it's my first time.
I'm like a 73-year-old, almost young on veteran, but thanks to people like you, I didn't go. I'm photographing I come from Florida. We're not only known for stealing elections, we're also known for the sunshine. How's it going? We're out here tonight? Including a tax sunshine state. Is that another solar panel on your house? What's it on your commercial property? Your taxes go Alright, so is he coming tonight?
Hello. My name is Jonathan Tom, and I'm a high school teacher from Washington State. Seattle, Washington, one about 3,000 miles that away. I came here this week to stand up for my students, for my two high school-age daughters. I came here so that I could do my part, do whatever I could to help them get the democracy they deserve. Not the democracy, or get the democracy they deserve, the democracy that they think they have when they read their U.S. history books, and when they pledge allegiance to the flag every morning. Most people don't really realize what Citizens United is, so I'm not really talking to you guys so much. That would be what we call preaching to the choir. But I'm talking to the folks who might be watching a video right now, or maybe our friends in the police department. And I appreciate what was said about giving thanks to those folks who allowed someone lives for us. We're doing this as much for you and your children as for us, for ours. But when you hear people chanting, corporations aren't people, money is speech, or overturn Citizens United, if you didn't know that, refers to Citizens United, which is a Supreme Court ruling that happened about 6 years ago in 2010, right in that building, right across the street, where by a 5-4 decision, 5 unelected justices outvoted 4 to say that corporations are entitled to the same constitutional free speech rights as individual people, as real people, that spending money, that spending millions of dollars to influence elections, to buy elections, is now considered a form of free speech protected by the First Amendment. So that is why we have to legalize bribery in this country, and that's why our elected representatives are no longer allowed to put any kind of reasonable limits on how much money corporations spend on elections. So students out there, I'm asking you to learn about it. Teachers, I'm asking you to teach about it as appropriate to your class curriculum. Students, ask your social studies teachers what Citizens United is. Social studies teachers teach it in a way that's nonpartisan, in a way that's objective, in a professional way. It's part of your job. Not teaching that as part of constitutional law or U.S. history. It's like me as a biology teacher, not teaching climate change. It's not right. So do that and ask questions of your elected representatives. Make sure that nobody gets to run for office in 2016 without telling us what specifically they're going to do to fix these problems, get big money out of elections, make sure voter rights.
Thank you. Hey everybody, I'm a UBC student. I'm the Direct Action Coordinator for People United, an anti-oppression organization at my school. But I speak to you not as a university student of a university where I was kicked out of my classes for arguing with a teacher who said that slavery wasn't that bad and who called a rape scene in a book a sex scene. I am speaking to you as a human being who has not been properly educated by that system. We did not get any education about countries and the political system other than our own in our high school. In many places in the country, possibly graduating without hearing shit about the fact that this within a capitalist system. Economics, you can get economics degrees without hearing the word capitalism. Because it's like a fish in water syndrome. We don't acknowledge our economic, our political, or social structure because it's taken as a given, and it makes it so it's almost impossible to think outside of that framework for anybody who's been educated within that system. I've heard a lot of people who are talking about returning to a more pure form of democracy. We have never been a true democracy. This country was founded on genocide, and when this country was founded, only white landowning men could vote. The ideal was never to have a true democracy. And we need to change the conversation and talk about looking forward and what we're going to build, which never has existed yet, as opposed to idolizing a past which does not serve and which oppresses most of us by one dimension or another. Racism, sexism, the class war, homophobia, and transphobia are all interconnected. Because as people vie for a slice of hegemonic power, as people vie for a slice of legitimacy and authority, they shit on other people who are oppressed by some dimension where they personally are privileged. It's all that shit which divides and spies us and makes it so that we are not unified and makes it so that we are not working together to overtake a group of people much, much smaller than us in numbers. They control the vast majority of the resources and the airspace, the fucking place on national TV. The reason they're not talking about this is because they don't want more people to come out and join us.
Hi, I just want to thank the people here that
Talk into the microphone.
Mic check. I want to thank. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. We are people. Ensure domestic
Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Jessica Devereaux coming to you from Capitol Hill. This is day 5 of Democracy Spring. I'm joined now by Brianna Ross. Brianna, thank you so much for being with us.
No, of course. Glad to be here.
So you're a recent graduate and one of the organizers of Democracy Spring. For folks who are watching at home, can you just talk about how this all came together?
Yes, my name is Brianna Ross. I'm the Vice President of the U.S. Student Association, and we are here to demand a democracy, a true democracy, in which, we have representatives that are actually representing us, where we have, where the Voting Rights Act is passed and a reality, where the Voter Empowerment Act is a reality, and where fair elections are actually happening, and where we have a Supreme Court nominee that is going to make sure that a true democracy that is representing the people and not the 1%.
Okay, and you guys are not endorsing President Obama's nomination, Merrick Garland, but what would you like to see?
I would say that we believe in education justice, and education justice is the idea that we are going to dismantle different systems of oppression in higher education, whether it be, fighting for climate justice, fighting for economic justice, fighting for racial justice. All of the different systems that oppress our higher education system also happen with our government as well.
And one of those big issues at least of what I've heard today, because this is Youth Day, this is the theme of Democracy Spring today, is Student and Youth Day, is about student debt, and we have over $1 trillion of student debt. So can you just talk from a personal level, how has that affected your life?
Yeah, me personally, I work with students every day that are impacted. It's $1.3 trillion of student debt that's impacting us, correct? And I've seen students that have to choose between buying books and having to buy food. And that's like a reality that so many students have to face. Students that are student parents, students that have to leave for a semester and then come back. And then folks that have to get a job to pay for the education that was supposed to get them a job, which is a really contradictory idea.
All right, so you were also a part of the steering committee that put Democracy Spring together. Can you just talk about who else is behind that committee, and in what capacity did your association help with this protest?
Yes, there are all sorts of nonprofit organizations. I know specifically for Student and Youth Day, they wanted folks from the United Students Against Sweatshops, from DC Votes, from different. They wanted to have a coalition of different folks from different issue-based organizations to make sure that we are actually representing the people that are being impacted directly from these issues. And in regards to specifically what our role was to make sure that students are being represented. There's a lot of decision makers that are not students that are making student decisions on the behalf of students, and folks that have not been students in years, where education was a smidgen of the cost that it is now, to now where the average student graduates with over $30,000 in student debt. So we're in a different time and a different place, and we want to make sure that students are being heard, and folks from underrepresented groups and marginalized identities are being at the forefront of the movement.
Did you guys help with the funding at all?
No, we did not.
Okay. So for people who don't know what your association stands for, what exactly do you stand for?
We stand for education justice. So we've been around since 1947. We're the nation's oldest and largest student-led organization, representing over 1.5 million students. And we believe that we have to destroy racism, classism, xenophobia, and other systems of oppression in higher education in order to create a better society.
Okay. All right. Brianna, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right. So this is Democracy Spring. As I said before, day 5. We've been covering this live since Monday. Monday was the first day of sit-ins that took place on the Capitol building. You had more than 400 people arrested. I believe the last number official number was 430 people. So that was unprecedented. Capitol Police said they have never arrested that many people here in the Capitol. So really making history here. I've spoken to many protesters. They say that they're not going to be giving up. Tomorrow is a day of climate justice, so they will be organizing around that issue. And then on Monday, there is a day where I still haven't gotten confirmation, but there are tentative plans to actually go into lawmakers' offices and demand actually to meet with lawmakers, and if they are not granted a meeting, then they will perform sit-ins and risk arrest in those offices. I actually spoke to a communications director for for Democracy Spring. They've told me that there were about 13 people arrested earlier this morning in the visitors' rotunda. They staged a sit-in there. So there are even more arrests. As you can see on our other camera, there are arrests still ongoing. We've spoken to Chris Hedges. We've spoken to Lawrence Lessig. You also heard from Medea Benjamin. All of these folks, they're risking arrest today, saying that they want to get the corrupting influence of money out of politics, as well as attack voter suppression laws. So we'll be continuing this coverage for the next half hour or so. We'll speak to more folks, take a look at the arrests that are still ongoing, and we'll soon be back talking with you.
Who are listening at home, you can join us, you can donate to help get people here, and you can start the conversation. Start breaking down the mental barriers and join your community. We're all in this together.
Real quick, I know it was already said once. I know we thank the officers here, but I want to thank them with a little more specificity. The officers here are doing their job regardless of whether or not they believe that they should arrest us. It is their job. They have to arrest us. Whether or not they want to join us, whether or not they believe as we do, they have a job to do. And they're going to do it, and their equal treatment of us should be respected. All the way this week, the officers have been kind to us, they've been considerate, and they have paid attention to our demands, even though they may not be able to do as they wish. They have their orders, they are following them, and we have to appreciate the fact that through the time that they work, they are keeping us safe to the best of their abilities. So thank you.
I've been doing some statistics research with UMBC. Of the over 200 people in the tri-state area killed by police in the past 10 years, there have been less than 7 investigations. Not indictments, that's investigations.
Hello, my name is Anthony Seattle III from San Diego, California. Anthony Seattle III from San Diego, California. People have spoken about our economic and political model. There's been a lot of misinformation taught to the general public throughout the years. The reality is, we're in the Constitution, we can have any kind of economic model we want. The only thing that the Constitution specifies is that every state is a republic form of government. We can have communism, socialism, capitalism, or any other form of economic model. You can mix and match these different systems. The easy examples are China, the People's Republic of China, the old USSR, United Soviet Socialist Republic. Both of those countries had a republic form of governance along with a different economic model. Another thing that they don't teach the general populace is Adam Smith. He's considered the father of modern economics. Required reading for anybody who gets a major in economics. And he wrote a book back in 1776 called An Inquiry to the Rise of Wealth of Nations. In this book, he specifically states that this form of economic model, meaning capitalism or any market-based economy, has always created a very rich elite class that does no labor at all. It consumes 10 to 100 times the total amount of resources the entire working class creates. If we go back to 1860, Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to a guy, I believe, named Thomas Yancey. Paraphrase, he stated how the American public does not understand how the money system or the banking system works, and they clamor for more and more of this fake money. And the banks have always created bubbles that consistently burst all throughout history, and that they're like a sick patient that refuses to take their medicine. James Diamond testifying before Congress on a documentary called Surviving Progress, in which Martin Scorsese was the executive producer, testified before Congress. Why is anybody surprised about this last, bubble burst? Because it consistently does this every 7 to 10 years. Michael Hudson, an economic historian that worked for the IMF, takes it back to 2000 BC. We've always had bubbles.
Alright, we're a smaller group here, which means we gotta make some more noise. So who knows a good chant? Money ain't speech, corporations aren't people.
Money ain't speech, corporations aren't people.
Money ain't speech, corporations aren't people.
Democracy, spring the movement's coming to you.
Democracy, spring the movement's coming to you.
Democracy, spring, sit in.
Democracy, spring.
One person, one vote.
One person, one vote.
Listen up and take note.
Listen up and take note.
Nonviolent action.
Nonviolent action
is the people's hope.
Is the people's hope.
Gotta give the people hope.
Gotta give the people hope.
Democracy's reign, sit and sit in.
Democracy's reign, sit and sit.
Sit and sit in.
Sit and sit.
Sit and sit in.
Sit and sit.
Sit and sit in.
Sit and sit.
What do we want?
Democracy.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Democracy.
When do we want it?
Now. If we don't get
Let us learn. 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 Let us learn.
Sit down, but stand up too. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
There are some places I've been that you have not been to. There are some places I've been that you have been to too. There are some places you've been that I have not been to. There are some places that we have not been to yet. There is one question with 1,000 answers, or perhaps only one answer for 1,000 things to ask. But hey, don't you know there's no need to feel dejected, because all of our grievances are connected. Everywhere I go, I see a different situation. But everywhere I go, I see the same thing. Everywhere we are, we're in a different situation. But everywhere we go, we know the same thing. There is one question with 1,000 answers, or perhaps only one answer for 1,000 things to ask. But hey, don't you know there's no need to feel dejected, because all of our grievances are connected. Ooh, whoa.
live thing all day. It's great. Now, real news, who's your, what's her name? Abby Martin? I met her at the Or no, I met her at the Prime Minister. Okay, yeah.
Democracy! Now! Democracy! Now! Shut it down! 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 All right, so this is the 5th day of Democracy Spring. The Real News has been covering this since Monday. The first day, there were more than 400 arrests here at the Capitol. On Tuesday, we had about 50 people arrested. On Wednesday, it was Racial Justice Day. There were about 100 people arrested. And yesterday, we saw dozens of people arrested under the theme labor. Today, it's all about students and youth. And of course, student debt has been a main issue for many of these protesters here. And they say they cannot reform the system without getting money out of politics, which is really at the center of Democracy Spring. They have 4 bills that they would like Congress to pass. These bills, one is a constitutional amendment called Democracy for All. This amendment would essentially limit campaign contributions for donors, and it would have to be, of course, ratified by all the states. There are more than a dozen states already that have campaign finance reform laws established in their own constitutions. California is going to have a vote this November to discuss the issue. But here at Democracy Spring, they say that they want Congress to take that step and pass a constitutional amendment. They are also calling for Congress to take an up or down vote on President Obama's nominee. They are not saying whether or not they endorse said nominee, Merrick Garland, but they do say that whoever replaces Antonin Scalia's seat, Justice Antonin Scalia, they will have to be against Citizens United and would want to overturn that decision, which essentially allowed unlimited campaign contributions and equated, as these protesters are saying, they equated money with speech, which allowed a lot more outside donors to make their voices heard in campaigns without direct representation by those entities. Super PACs were created. You've heard the word super PAC. Those are political action committees that allow dark money to exist in campaigns. So we are here, as I said, here at the Capitol. We will be covering Democracy Spring until it ends. The end date is Monday. Monday, there is supposed to be a day of actions tentatively scheduled. They will be going into lawmakers' offices and demanding to meet with lawmakers. And if they are denied a meeting, they will be holding sit-ins. Tomorrow, there will be actions as well, and that will be related to climate justice. So there are many folks here saying that you cannot even approach the issue of climate change because the fossil fuel industry has been lobbying Congress and making it very difficult to pass any regulations to regulate carbon emissions and things of that nature. All right, so we are here on Capitol Hill. As you can see, there are protesters still here. We are wrapped up probably most of the arrests that will be happening today. There's still a group of protesters. I believe Rosario Dawson, actress Rosario Dawson, is one of those protesters who is risking arrest today. We spoke to Chris Hedges earlier, former New York Times Middle East Bureau chief, as well as Harvard professor Lawrence Lessig. They both were arrested today. We had great interviews with them. We'll have them up on our website as well, so you can hear directly from them as to why they decided to come here and why it was so important for them to participate in Democracy Spring. I'm here. I'm Jessica Devereaux. We've been covering this live. We'll certainly be coming back to you on Monday, and we'll be continuing to track this. Some people are saying will become a movement. So thank you so much for being with us, watching us throughout the week. As I said, Jessica Devereaux signing off from here on Capitol Hill.